27% of the jail populations of this country are Aboriginal people. 27%. We make up less than 3% of the Australian population. Now, either my people are all born thieves, murderers, rapists, bank robbers, whatever, or there is something very sick with the custodial system. And that sickness is called racism. And the sooner it is looked at, recognised, and something done about it, then we can move on. In this state, about 25% of the jail population for males is Aboriginal. For women, it's about 32%. And for our juveniles, you can take any figure between 40 and 70%, depending on who you want to read. Now, with those figures in mind, that's all I need to do. And I now hand over to the speakers. Thank you.
This organisation has now run a series of seminars, but one of our major exercises is, and we feel we helped the then Attorney General, candidate for Attorney General, Shadow Attorney General, Greg Smith, to stop the Law and Order campaign at the last election. It has been traditionally New South Wales to have a law and order auction. It's cheap vote winning, has got nothing to do with suppressing crime, and it ignores the rights of people and their families for the sake of just sheer votes. It's the demonising process that we do with asylum seekers. We call them illegals when they're legal, and we turn the public against them. So we decided to try and turn the public back in favour of prisoners who may be serving a short term, may be serving a longer term, any distance, any time, but their families are all affected. And when you spend a bit of time dealing with prisoners, you have some idea just how extensive is their network. We make representations to corrective services, but what we decided to do in the last election was to go to all the major political parties and put a questionnaire to them, A, to educate them as to the issues, B, to ask them to answer questions about what their attitude is.
Now, we are a small organisation, the Community Justice Coalition, but during the past year we've done quite some important work in relation to women prisoners. We held a forum not so long ago where we identified some issues particularly affecting women prisoners, and they are all reflected in this questionnaire. We looked at such things as the indignity of strip searches, so often applied to women prisoners. We looked at the problems that women in prison have in maintaining contact with their families and their children. We looked at the limited employment opportunities for women prisoners and the limited education opportunities for women prisoners. And in all this, we were, of course, relying on the advice and experience of Kat Armstrong, who's over here, and who spoke most tellingly at that forum. So we hope that some of those issues, or many of those issues, will get positive support from our political candidates at the coming election. But when we speak of women prisoners and the growing number that there is, we should also reflect that for many of these women, it doesn't seem at all necessary that they ought to go to prison, that they ought to be detained. Many women in prison are non-violent offenders. They're sentenced to short terms. We have read with great interest of the new system in operation in the United Kingdom, under which women who are relatively minor offenders are diverted into community programs which provide education, health services, counselling, family support and so on, instead of going into prison. And this is something that we need to look at in the context of our own community. We need to keep as many people out of prison as possible. I'd like also to mention that we recently took part in a roundtable conference organised by David Shoebridge, who's here tonight, to discuss the possibility of putting computers in prison cells, obviously subject to proper control and management, which would open up a whole new horizon for people in prison with access to counselling, to education and other similar things, which would surely improve their lives and give them better chances when they come out of prison.
Prisoners Aid found itself in a very difficult situation, to say the least, when a decision was made by Corrective Services New South Wales in September 2013 to delete inmate support as a stream of funding from the Community Funding Program of Corrective Services New South Wales. This decision had serious implications for the prisoners in New South Wales correctional centres who needed assistance with financial transactions or required their personal property to be held for them pending release. Those two major programs delivered by Prisoners Aid. And Prisoners Aid, in terms of information, was incorporated in 1901. You are probably also aware that that decision now has been reversed as far as prisoners' property is concerned, and we have recently negotiated a new agreement with Corrective Services New South Wales, commencing on the 1st of October to recommence property collection and storage services to newly received inmates. However, at this stage we only have a 12-month contract with no guarantee that it will continue beyond then. So the Corrective Services and Prison Aid involvement so far is secured. We shall be working hard to satisfy all concerned that we are best placed to provide the most effective and efficient service possible based on a good understanding of the rights and needs of prisoners as well as corrective services. Corrective Services have assured us that they now have an alternative mechanism to enable inmates to access their funds held in external bank accounts. However, the early indications are that these arrangements may be far from satisfactory, and that has consequences. We will pursue this matter conscientiously.
Justice Action, I had made a determination to remain in support of Prisoners Aid and in support of the storage entitlements of prisoners, and we had undertaken to ensure that the storage was maintained no matter what. And I think that's a really important determination. That we as a community, we're going to look after our own inside the prisons regardless, and that is, I think, the commitment of the community, and so that is the commitment that allows people inside the prisons to feel as though although they are isolated, they are not alone.